Hi, I'm glad you're here. This is Jennifer McGuire. So today I am sharing with you some simple ways to create surprise window cards. These are cards with windows on the front, and then when you open them up, you can see an additional sentiment. I kept my designs pretty simple, but you could step up this technique if you want. And the best part is all you need are basic shaped dies. You could even probably use punches for this. I have several examples, hoping they inspire you to give it a try. I'm starting simple and I'll do a few of the same design, and then I'll shake things up later in the video, so stick around for that. I do think it's best to look at the completed card before we start creating. So here is our surprise window card. From the front, there is a hole, a window, where you can see the sentiment is suspended across. And when you open it up, there's a sentiment underneath. So there's a lot of fun on the inside of the card, just like the outside. Now for this card and the few others I'm doing here at the beginning, I'm using the new Pinkfresh Geo Arch. I really like this combination. I love all these that Pinkfresh has been coming out with. This is a hot foil plate and coordinating stencils. I know not everyone has a foil machine, so I will show you how to use these stencils without the foil plate. Stick around, we'll do that next. But first, let's use the foil plate. I have my Spellbinders Glimmer machine, which allows me to apply foil to cardstock. I've put the plate onto the warm portion of the machine, and I'm taking my foil and laying it pretty side down right on top of that. I then will put my smooth white cardstock and the two plates that come with the machine. I'll press the timer button. When the timer stops flashing, we take all of the platform and plates out and run it through our platinum die cut machine. So the Glimmer machine applies the heat, the die cut machine applies the pressure. If you have a different die cut machine, there are different foil machines that will work with it. You just need to check with the manufacturer. They all work the same. Okay, so now we have this beautiful foil on the white cardstock, and we're going to ink that up in a moment. But remember, this leftover foil you can use with the solid hot foil plate so it doesn't go to waste. I'm not doing that today, but I'll link to a video showing how up here on the top right corner. All right, so now I have 3 stencils that I can line up with my foiling and apply ink over. Very simple. I'm applying a coral color, a pink, and then like an orange color. These line up very easily with the foiling we've done. Keep in mind you could mask to get stripes of color or get different colors in different areas. I'm going for a simple look. All right, so now for the third stencil, and here I'll be adding some orange color. I think I would have liked it even leaving this third stencil off, so those areas were white. Totally up to you what you do here. Okay, so now I have this inked foiled background, and I actually did a few more of these, which I'll share with you a little bit later. But first, I wanted to show you how to use these stencils without the foiling. So this is just plain white cardstock here, no foiling on it. I'm starting with the first stencil and applying ink onto it. I then like to take a dry cloth and wipe the stencil off before I remove it. It's an easy way to clean it off. Then I took that same stencil and I rotated it upside down, and I'm applying some lighter pink ink over it. Now you could use the stencils how they were meant to be lined up, which is what I did with the foil plate, but I thought I would show you that you can change it up and look at these cool new patterns I'm developing. So here I have the third stencil. I'm just picking a spot where I want to position it, just lining it up with the pattern that we have, and inking with blue. So don't feel like you have to use layering stencils how they were intended. I'm going to create a really cool pattern paper by changing things up. By the way, you might notice bruises on my arms. I had someone try to draw blood at a doctor's office, and let's just say it didn't go very well. So I have multiple bruises on both of my arms. Just wanted to explain that because you'll get a glimpse of that while I'm filming here. There it is. It looks like distress ink, but unfortunately it's not. Okay, so I'm just moving the stencil around, applying some blue inks. Here I'm doing a soft lilac and just allowing them to overlap to create new colors. I'm using Pinkfresh Studio dye inks today. You could use any inks that you want. I really like the colors that they have to offer. They work really well together. I'm flipping that stencil over and I'm going to apply it in a different spot. This time I'm using a Geo Arch Sky Blue ink. Don't be afraid to mix your different ink brands. That's okay. It's a great way to get more colors on your projects. Okay, so let's trim this down and look at that really cool pattern we get. It's a fun way to create your own pattern paper and use your products creatively. Now here are a couple where I did the foiling and used the stencils as they were intended. Here's a comparison here, showing you how you can change things up. So now I have multiple backgrounds ready. I even created more than this to create multiple window surprise cards. For something a little bit different on these first cards, the card opening itself is 3.5 inches wide by 5.5 inches tall. And then I put a white backing on that. So these first ones, you can see I cut that panel down a little narrow. So there's my narrow panel, and I have a note card here that is 4.25 by 5.5 inches. I have a bunch of those pre-made. I just need to cut that down so I can hide it behind this foiled panel. So I'll cut this so that it's 3.5 inches wide, 5.5 inches tall, and there you can see it fits behind there. Now I have a circle die, and I'm cutting from the top center of this panel. You could use any shape die that you want to here. You can use any size die you want to. This will form our window. I'm just using basic circle dies. I really like stacking dies that have lots included. I used a set from Waffle Flower today. Now I am just holding our foiled panel on the front of our note card. And right in that opening, I'm going to use a little bit of temporary tape to hold that foiled circle that we die cut out in place. So I'm just going to pop it right in place. Doesn't matter if it lines up, just pop it there. Now take the die and tape it around that. It'll pop onto it and tape it there temporarily. Then open up your card and run it through your die cut machine. This will ensure that your circle window on your card panel will line up with the circle window on your foiled panel. So that's just an easy way to make sure those die cut circles line up. Next, I will glue this panel onto the front of our card, lining up those windows. I usually use liquid adhesive. I couldn't find it at the moment, so I just used a tape runner. Liquid adhesive is handy because you can wiggle it until it's in the right place. Now I'm taking this narrow card and gluing it just to a solid piece of white cardstock that is 4.25 by 5.5 inches. So it's just a little backing to it. Okay, now for the sentiment. This will be suspended across the window we created. I thought it'd be fun to use a foil sentiment to match the foil on our background. If you do not have foiled sentiments, you could definitely do heat embossing here. To foil these words, I like to put a piece of tape on the side of my hot foil plate to create kind of a hinge. I then pull that back and tuck underneath it a piece of foil so that the pretty foil side is touching the hot foil plate. So there, I'll just press it down, and now I can lay those with the plate side down onto our Glimmer machine, put our plates on top of it, press the timer button. When it's done, we can just take that all out and run it through our die cut machine, and this will apply that gold foil to our white cardstock. I then can use the coordinating dies to cut them out. I'm doing a few spare sentiments that I can use later. Okay, so now I want to add this hello to my card, but I like a little dimension, so I die cut 2 additional white cardstock hello die cuts and glued that behind the foiled one. I then put glue just on the outside back edges of this, so I could suspend it across our window. So it's glued over on the H and on the O. Now we have our window design, and we can choose a sentiment to hide behind it on the inside. I chose the Pinkfresh Studio Folk Floral Stem Stamp Set. I wanted to show you they have other products to go with it. You have a hot foil plate, a coordinating die, a stamp set, and layering stencils. So you can pick and choose what might suit you. I love this set. I didn't get a chance to use the floral image today, but I will in a future video. I did choose the sentiment that says "You are a treasure," and I'll use that hidden inside of my window card. Next, I created a white circle die cut that is slightly smaller than the window we did on the front of our card. Onto that white circle, I'm stamping the "You are treasure" sentiment. I have it stuck to a Brutus Monroe sticky mat so it stays still as we do our stamping. Now I have a small pink die cut heart, and I'm gluing that right on top of our sentiment in the center. Once I have that in place, I can stamp the sentiment again, and it'll be continuous across that circle die cut. At this point, I realized I shouldn't have glued my hello sentiment down just yet, so I'm going to carefully peel it off. I'll add it back in. It's easier to get your sentiment straight on the inside if you haven't added the front sentiment on. I did die cut a larger gold circle to put this on so that the gold would peek through to the front. I'm putting glue on the back of this, and then I'm just holding it behind the window. So I'll just hold it right there, make sure that sentiment looks straight, and then I'll carefully close that down to the inside of the card. And you can wiggle it if it ends up moving a bit, but you can see how you can look through that hole and see the gold and the sentiment inside. Now we can add back on our sentiment. So I'll put glue back onto the edges of it and then just suspend it across the front. So don't be afraid to carefully remove something. You can always put it back. Okay, so I did finish this off by adding some little gemstones here and there on the pattern. I love when I have a geometric background like this and then add little gemstones or pearls because it really just kind of steps up that background. You can totally skip this if you want. You could use flat little heart die cuts. You could do whatever you want. But I use some dewdrops from Trinity stamps. So here's the completed card. It stands up on display nicely. You have that window you can see through. And then behind it, you have that hidden sentiment with plenty of room to write a personal message on the bottom. Here you can see how those dewdrops just really add to that geometric background. I use kind of softer colors here, but you could go bold if you want to. I really love the mix of the foil and the inking. So since I had all of these supplies out, I made several cards like this, but I changed things up a bit. On this one, I changed the colors on the front. I still went softer. I wanted a softer overall look to these. And then I used a different sentiment on the inside, but the technique is very much the same. So you can do this with any shape window. You could use any large sentiment, even a large stamped and cut out sentiment, and then put anything you can hide on the inside. On this one, I used the thanks sentiment on the front, but again, the you are a treasure on the inside. Now my last foiled front card is very simple. All I did was stamp a sentiment behind it, didn't add the heart. I just wanted to show you can keep this very clean and simple if you want to. And as for a background, you could use pattern paper there, you could use stamping, anything you want. And just add the little bit of extra fun by doing the surprise window feature. Now let's create a card using that inked background that I created with the stencils alone. Notice that I used a small sentiment on the front, so it was hard to hide something behind it. So I added the heart. This is a great way to use your smaller sentiments on the front and on the inside. So here is a look at the completed card so you know the direction we're headed. Now off screen, I created the hole at the center of the inked panel and the note card and glued it to a white backer, just like we did before. Same thing, but this time we're going to change up what we put in that window. So from that leftover circle inked piece, I'm using a Pinkfresh Studio heart die to cut from the center. This will float across the window behind our sentiment. I am using the Pinkfresh Studio Heart Smiles stamp set and coordinating dies. This is a new set and I really like it. I like the unique sentiments and I like that the coordinating dies are available so you can easily add them to your card anywhere you want. So I chose a sentiment and stamped it with black ink on white cardstock. I then used the coordinating die to cut it out. I used the same coordinating die to cut from 2 pieces of white cardstock, and I'll glue those die cuts behind our stamped one. This will give it strength to suspend across that window. For sentiment on the inside, I used the Pinkfresh Studio Fancy Rose Bunch stamp set. That's Love You Friend sentiment. Now this has a stamp set, a coordinating die, and several layering stencils that are sold separately so you can pick and choose. I will be using these later in the video. It works really well, so stay tuned for that. I stamped that in the center of a white circle and put glue on the back of it. I'll hold this behind our window, centering and making it straight, and then press it down into our card on the inside. That will ensure that the sentiment is centered and straight when the window is closed. Okay, so now we can add our sentiment and heart to the front. I'm going to put glue only on the edges of our sentiment, so on that G and on that Y. You want to make sure you don't put any glue in between or you'll glue your window shut. I do recommend a strong liquid adhesive such as Gina K Connect. So we'll press that right over the window. However, when I close this, you'll be able to see our sentiment on the inside. That's why we have the heart. I'll place this heart right over the center of the white circle on the inside. I'll then put glue on the back of our sentiment, only in the center area, and close that down. That will grab the heart and allow it to be suspended in the front of our window, which I think is such a fun look. Then when the recipient opens it, there's a surprise sentiment on the inside too. Now you could do more on the inside for the surprise element, but I really like to keep these simple, so there's plenty of room to write a personal message on the bottom. I did add some gemstones to this, and I kept it simple from there. I like that I was able to use these stencils to create a creative background. No need for the hot foil plate. And by the way, I know not everyone has invested in a hot foil machine or has interest in doing so. I totally get it. If you are interested in adding a foiled look to your card without having to get a foiling system, Pinkfresh has these pre-foiled sentiments. These are all gold on white cardstock, a variety of sizes and occasions. It's a great way to add foil to your card in an inexpensive way. They are also just handy to add when you're quickly creating something. So I just wanted to share that with you in case you were interested in an inexpensive way to add foil. Okay, so now let's move on to another example. No foiling on this one. This one is kind of like our last one, but I've stepped it up a bit to add a die cut to the background. So again, let's start with the card so you can get an idea of the direction we're headed. You can see through that heart window, and there's a small sentiment on the inside. You can do this with any large image on the front of your card. And I showed you this before, but I thought I'd show it again. This is the stamp set, coordinating stencils, and coordinating die I'll be using. I have stamped the image with black ink and used the coordinating die to cut it out. I place that onto my Brutus Monroe sticky mat to hold it still, and then I'm taking one of the layering stencils and lining it up. The sticky mat will also hold that stencil in place, making it really easy to ink over this. Now there are many stencils, I think maybe 6 here, so you can get really detailed coloring with this. I chose to use smaller brushes. These are the rabbit hole design bitty brushes. They're inexpensive. They're very handy for adding that small amount of ink. But again, there are lots of great brushes out there. Use whatever you have. I decided to use the small brushes so I could add different colors of ink into the different areas of the stencil. You could keep it simple by doing all of the same color over each stencil, but this is a good way to step it up. This is the main feature of our card, so I think it's okay to spend about 15 minutes adding color to this. If you prefer, you could watercolor, color with markers, anything you want. But for me, I'm most comfortable using those inks. Okay, so now we can move on to the next layering stencil. I'm not really going in order. They actually have a number engraved on the stencil up at the top, so it's easy to figure out. I just kind of went my own way. It really doesn't matter. The stencils do have engraving marks, so you can use those to help line up each time, but I found they were really easy to line up with my stamped image below. Also keep in mind, you could stencil only without stamping first, and it would form a beautiful no-line image. I like that there are many ways you can use them. To save time in the video, I'm skipping a lot of the inking. It's very basic. You can ink it however you want, and when you're done, look at this colorful image. I just think that's beautiful and a heck of a lot better than I could have done with coloring. Okay, so now we want this to be the front of our card, but you know me, I like to build up dimension behind it. So I have 2 additional white die cuts from the same die. We're going to need to create a window through all of these layers. So I have a white note card that is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. I have placed my floral die cut on it where I want it to end up. It's not glued there, just being held there. Then I'll take a heart die and place it right towards the top center and tape it in place. I can then run that through my die cut machine, creating a heart window at the top center of our floral background. I will then lay that die cut piece on top of one of our solid white die cuts, just lining it up, not gluing it in place, just positioning them together. I'll put a little temporary adhesive in that heart opening, pop our floral heart into that, and this will allow me to know where to cut the heart on this white die cut. I'll pop the die around the heart die cut. It just kind of pops right there, tape it in place, run it through our die cut machine, and there we have a window in this piece that lines up with our inked piece. So I'll put those on top of each other and you can see how they line up. I will then do that on the other white die cut. Now, this process takes a little bit of time, but adding the dimension behind this flower will really make it stand out. You could try to get creative with foam tape, but it would be a little tricky to do so. Also, I find this will hold up much better in the mail. Stacked die cuts always hold it better than adding little pieces of foam tape here and there. Okay, so I've done the same process to cut the heart window in the third die cut, and now we can glue these together. We do need to create a heart window on our note card itself. This is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. I'll hold my die cut at the center of it. Then I will put a little temporary tape in there, put our heart inside of it, remove the outside die cut, pop the die right around the heart, and run that through our die cut machine. So now this heart is cut at the center in the same spot of all of the front of our card. I'm a big fan of using piercing or faux stitching cover plates on our cards for added texture. I have this diamonds one from Pinkfresh Studio. I really like their cover plates because they don't cut the outside edge. So you can tape the die on the front of a note card like this, run it through your die cut machine as you would any die, and it will create that piercing pattern on the front of your card only. And I'm so sorry, my arm looks really bad. I apologize for that. Anyway, you just run this through like you would any die, and you get that piercing or faux stitch pattern on the front of the note card alone. And that, I think, is a great way to really step up your plain note cards. So I glued that piece right onto the front of our card, and now it's time to add a sentiment. I was going to add this one, which is black sentiment on white cardstock, but it gets lost in all of that color. So I changed it up and I did a white heat embossed sentiment on black cardstock, which is a great way to make your sentiment stand out. I put glue on the back side of that on the left and the right so that it would be suspended across that heart opening. I thought it would be fun to have a heart suspended also, so I die cut a heart and I'm going to put it on to the back of that sentiment with a little bit of glue there. I'll just center it up there in that open window and just give it some time to dry. Now we can add a sentiment to the inside of the card. I should have done that first, right? Remember that at the beginning of the video? Here's a trick. I can use a pencil to trace that heart that we just glued there. As long as I stamp my sentiment on the inside of the card, inside of these pencil lines, I know it will be hidden from the outside. So I chose a sentiment that says sending a great big hug from this older Pinkfresh Studio Happy Bloom stamp set. And I'll just stamp that with black ink. And I will also add a little heart and then stamp on that too. Adding that little heart behind the sentiment is a great way to kind of make it a little more interesting without taking up too much room on the inside of the card. All right, so that's it for this card. I didn't add any embellishments. I felt like the color on that image is just so amazing thanks to those stencils and the texture from the cover plate we used. I also like having that smaller heart kind of suspended inside of the bigger heart, so you can just see through that little bit, which adds a lot of interest to this card. Here's a closer look at the texture in the background. Again, just steps it up a little bit and easy to do. And on the inside, we have plenty of room to write a personal sentiment at the bottom. All right, this next card shows that you can do the surprise window feature using frame dies, ornate frame dies, like the circle one that you see here. It's a great way to step up your card. Now this one has a larger window, and then on the inside where there's the surprise sentiment, there's actually a mini card, so there's plenty of room to write a personal message. For this, I used the new Pinkfresh Studio Ornate Circle die set. I like this die set because you can use them together or separately. And this die creates a lot of intricate detail, which is really beautiful and allows you to create something really elaborate looking on your card without taking much time. Now, if you only use the center die, you can do this from the center of a piece of cardstock. However, for my card, I want a standalone frame, so I will also use the outline die. Again, I like that you can use them together or separate. I'm placing my die cut onto a sticky mat while I add color to it. This is a pretty intricate die cut, so by putting on something sticky, it holds in place as we apply the brushed ink on top. I am using various colors of Pinkfresh Studio ink. You can use whatever you have, and you can use any blending brushes or blending tools you may have. The key to blending is always, no matter what you're using, it's always to overlap your inks. When you overlap inks, you get more blending, a better blended look, and it makes it look like you use more colors than you actually did. I just did kind of a rainbow going around. You may see my final card looks a little bit different because I ended up messing this one up, but it was the same effect. Just did bold color going around the frame die cut. And by the way, to clean your sticky mat, I just use a wet cloth and it just keeps it stick. It's a really handy tool to have. Next, I have a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch top folding white note card. And I chose a circle die that's close to the same as the opening of that Ornate die we just used. You could use the Ornate die if you wanted to here. I didn't think about it at the time, so I just used a circle close in size. I will then open that note card up and run that through our die cut machine to create a hole at the center. Next, let's add some texture to the front of that note card. This is another one of those great piercing cover plates. This is the dotted scallop. Love the look of this. Again, it doesn't have a cutting edge on the outside, so you can just temporarily tape it to the front of your note card, run it through your die cut machine, and you get that pierced pattern. Such a fun way to just add a little interest very quickly. All right, now we want to add our rainbow frame to the front of our card, but I like a little dimension behind it. So I cut 2 more frames from white cardstock, and I'm using touches of liquid glue to glue them together. This is much easier than adding little pieces of foam tape around the back of this ornate frame. Okay, let's get the inside of the card ready. For this, I wanted to have a colored heart that matched our frame. So I chose the same pink and peach inks that I used on the frame, and I'm just inking it up on a piece of scrap cardstock, putting those 2 colors overlapping. Then I have a small heart die that I'll cut from that inked area. That way this heart matches the outside. I have a die cut circle that's smaller than the window in the front of our card, and I'm stamping "Enjoy Your Special Day." Then I will glue the heart on top of that and stamp the sentiment again so we get the continuous look. I also created a mini note card to go inside of our card. This is made from gold cardstock, which is nice because the inside's white, where we write our personal message. I will just glue this to the inside of our card. The reason I'm putting this in here is our window is pretty big, so I wouldn't have much room underneath it to write my personal message. This will give us a bigger area for that personal greeting. Now we have our white circle with the sentiment. I'll put glue on the back of that and then just line it up in the center of the window when the card is closed. So this will be hidden by the sentiment we add in just a moment. Now we can glue our frame around the opening on the front of the card and add our sentiment to the front. I use the Spellbinders new Stylized Happy Birthday die set. I love the style of this, so unique. I cut the shadow from white and the letters from gold cardstock and glued them together. I want this to be suspended across our window, but it's a little small, so I have a trick to show you. Now the birthday's big enough. I put glue on the back left and right edges, and I'll glue that right onto our frame, so it's suspended across our frame. But the happy's too small to suspend. So I have a circle die, another one the same size as the one we stamped our sentiment on, and I'm lining it up with the stamped sentiment circle. I then put glue on the back of our birthday, close it, and that grabs that extra circle. So now we have a suspended smaller circle at the center of our window, which is helpful in hiding what's behind it. And now I can glue the happy onto it. Remember, if you don't have word dies, just choose longer stamped sentiments and create like a sentiment strip to go across the front. All right, now here is a look at the completed card. I did add some Trinity stamps dewdrops here and there on the frame for a little bit of sparkle. Now I have my greeting on the front with that little window, another greeting on the inside, and then plenty of room to write a personal message inside of that. So here you can see the texture on the background, the detail of the frame, the gold of the sentiment, that open window where you can see through to the inside. It looks really cool when you stand this up on display. Then when you open up the card, there's an additional stamped sentiment. You flip that open, personal greeting. So you really can use even large dies to create these surprise window features. So if you are interested in what I used today, I always provide those links in my YouTube description, hoping that's helpful to you. If you want some more inspiration at the end here, I'll have a couple other related videos. I appreciate you spending this time with me. I will have another video very soon, and I'll see you then.